Okay, it's off.
Fantastic. All right, we're recording. So as soon as I introduce you, then we'll just have a talk.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Good.
Hello and welcome to Morning Fuel. I'm your host, John Bundy, and you are here because you believe in the power of the spoken word and its ability to change lives, and that by sharing our stories, we can help others to overcome challenges that they cannot overcome on their own. Whether it's a victory that you need to win in business or in your own personal life, you understand that listening to others who are willing to share their stories, knowing that their stories ultimately don't belong to them, is how we overcome. And here with me today, all right, today's guest is a remarkable coach and mentor who has dedicated her life to uplifting and empowering others, particularly women, to recognize and achieve their full potential. Let's dive into the transformative journey of a woman who discovered her true calling in an unexpectedly profound moment. She spent many years flourishing in a career she loved, training and leading incredible women through the world of business, helping them to tap into their greatest strengths. Life was fulfilling, yet a lingering sense of something more, something elusive began to grow within her. It was during a pivotal moment at a major company awards event that her purpose became crystal clear. An excited young woman approached her, thanking her for a class that had dramatically altered her life's path. The young woman couldn't recall the specifics of what was said or even the topic, but she knew that something transformative had occurred. That interaction was a light bulb moment, revealing that her true gift lay in mentoring, a role where she had been most impactful all along. This revelation highlighted her innate ability to recognize potential and to offer the exact words needed at the most critical moments. It led her to focus full-time on mentoring, shaping her into the coach she is today, the coach she once wished she had. Her mission is simple yet profound: to help women see the greatness within themselves, to appreciate their innate gifts, and to live the extraordinary lives they're destined for. Our guest now wakes up each day with a singular goal: if she can help just one more woman realize the incredible person she was to be created, then it was indeed a good day. She offers a path for those feeling unfulfilled or stagnant, inviting them to explore coaching with her, to unlock a life beyond their wildest dreams and leave their unique imprint on the world. Please help me in extending a warm Morning Fuel podcast welcome to a visionary leader and a passionate mentor who believes in the power of recognizing and valuing our own gifts, Kathy Eckhardt.
Wow. You surprised me. You really do.
I knew a little bit about you.
You did. You did some digging to find that story. That was
It wasn't
quite a long
hard.
time ago. It wasn't hard.
People love you, Kathy.
Oh, well, thank you. That was a pivotal moment, and it really surprised me when she came up to me and said that she had remembered. She didn't remember what I taught. She just remembered that the person who got up off her seat 45 minutes later was not the one who sat down in it, and that made me realize there was just
so cool.
That so many people, so many women particularly, have that feeling that there's something more. But men do too. Men do too.
I did for a very long time.
Did you?
I'm 53 years old this year, and I really feel like I just discovered my call. I've been hearing it throughout the years. Years ago, my oldest, who is now 26, she was probably about 5, and I remember first hearing God call me to be a pastor, and it scared the life out of me. And I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't see myself standing behind a pulpit. And then a couple years later, he said that I was a missionary to my own people. I was listening to an African pastor, and he said that he was a missionary to his own people. He wanted to leave Africa after he got saved and go to the world. But God said, no, you're a missionary to your own people. So I thought, okay, who are my people? Well, my people are the ones that grew up in church but didn't know Jesus, got hurt by the church or their parents, told their dad to go to hell, and then left the house. And then came back. So that was me. That was my people. And then recently in 2019, right after starting the podcast, I heard again, God said, you're a minister to the marketplace. And I find that my pulpit is the podcast, and that I am a pastor, a missionary to my own people, and a minister to the marketplace all in one. And now, at 53 years old, I'm living that out, and I feel like I have unlimited energy.
You're doing an amazing job doing it, too.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
it's a lot of fun. It's the funnest thing to do. I mean, do your call. You become fearless. Wonderful. So that you had that pivotal moment. Talk to us about that pivotal moment. We love when, characters such as superheroes, when Peter Parker became Spider-Man, when he got bit by the spider. So what was your radioactive spider moment?
Well, I'm still doing what I've done for many years. I still am with Mary Kay Cosmetics. I still am a top director. But I felt like it was certainly not just selling a product, though I love the product. It was really working with the women.
Well, I love the product now, too. I'm smelling it right now. It's wonderful.
Yes, I can smell it, too.
It's shiny.
Like it. So, I'm there still. I have not left that. But I just felt there were women who would come up to me for other times I'd be speaking or I'd just meet them through what I was doing. And the same question used to come up. For some reason, they often would ask me what they thought they should do. That just kept coming up. And it wasn't that everybody was meant to be in Mary Kay. And I think, well, what is it? And why do they keep asking me that? One time I even went on Google after Google was started, and I put in the word, what is my purpose? And I think there were like a billion times of people who asked that question. I call it the eternal question. It seems like everybody wants to know why they're born. Yeah. Why are they here? And so I started really looking into that, and people would say, well, what am I supposed to do? And because they were just like wandering around waiting, like they think of the purpose as something that's going to land in their lap, not realizing that many times they're already doing their purpose. They just don't recognize that that's what it is.
And that's what happened with you, because as you were a director, you realized, wait a minute, I've been doing this. I've been doing my purpose.
It just working. Well, the reason I think we don't recognize it is it comes so naturally to us sometimes. It's our gift. And I'll say, well, what are your gifts? It's a God-given gift, and you don't recognize it because maybe it's something that seems easy. It just comes naturally, and people think it has to be hard or it has to be something you go to school for. Right. And I say, well, just look at what do you do so much that you could do it all day long? They could call your name and you might not even hear it because you're so entranced with what you're doing, or you just get so much joy and pleasure out of it.
Right.
Another thing to look at is, what do people come to you for? Are you're not a techie, you don't do anything in the technical field, and yet people come to you to say, how do I fix this? Maybe that's a gift you're not even aware of, or your gift might be hospitality, and you don't realize that that's a gift. You just know that you like to cook, or you like to entertain, or when people come to your door, you invite them in and say, come on in, and we're having dinner. You want to sit down? And you don't realize how important hospitality is, making people feel welcome, making them feel important. Right. So when I started looking at that, because I honestly believe, and I know you believe it too, God did not put us down here on the planet to just wander around forever wondering what I'm supposed to do. I think we came down with a knapsack. We're prepared. We have the tools for what we're supposed to do.
We just got to open that thing up.
We just have to open them up.
Right.
But so I was already doing a lot of that just because, well, even in business, I know you've heard this. You're in business. That the more people you help to get what they want, the more you'll get what you want. Yeah. So I was really trying to build other women, and a lot of what I wanted just started to happen.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm just realizing recently, because I've been doing the podcast since 2019. I've never charged anybody to be on the podcast, but it's free promotion for folks. And then I realized just a couple months ago, I was like, wait a minute, I have been giving, but it's something that I love to do. So it wasn't like I was putting forth any effort, though there was effort involved in editing and showing up and doing all that stuff. And I thought to myself, wow, this is the reason why the things are coming back to me. So, God will not be mocked. Whatever a person sows, that also will he reap. So you could continue to sow and sow and sow and sow with no intention of reaping, but it's going to come to you.
And it even happens faster when I think that isn't your intention necessarily, when you just feel you're giving something from your heart. Yeah. And people start coming to you and you say, well, I wonder why they're asking me that, you know? But you come up with an answer and they're satisfied and they go tell somebody else and somebody else comes back and says, Kathy Eckhardt helped me. But what really happened though, as far as the Mary Kay part of it, that was a natural field. I have women, and it's mostly women that gravitate to me and that I love love to work with because I didn't have a lot of confidence years ago. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I had 3 kids. I didn't even drive a car. I didn't even have a driver's license. I mean, people look at me now and they think, oh, you're such an extrovert, Kathy. Of course you're doing well. But that was not me. And the more I stayed at home without being able to drive, and I had to ask people to take me places like the doctor or something, and I didn't like to impose on people.
Right.
And so what happened was my confidence ebbed even more and more. And so Mary Kay just came along at the right time. And at that point, I've been doing it so long, Mary Kay was not a household name. And a lot of women in those days were stay-at-home moms, too. There hadn't been this big influx into the workforce. And it was just a perfect kind of backdoor into business for me. And it just built my confidence so much. The quote you used, if today one more woman begins to realize how great she is, it will be a good day.
Yeah.
That was what Mary Kay used to say.
Right.
And she truly believes that. And so it was just perfect. It was a fit for me.
Beautiful.
And so I worked with women, but I wasn't super confident. I certainly couldn't sell anything. Never thought I'd want to sell anything. But I just loved the product. I loved what it was doing for me. And then I loved watching other people get excited. And I want to share a little bit about using our gifts, but I also talk a lot about stepping into your genius zone. And in fact, I'll be speaking at our Solopreneur Success Day next in June.
Wonderful.
And I think that's what I'm going to talk about. And so let me, if you don't mind, that's kind of what
mind
I
at
want
all.
to transition into.
Yeah, sure.
Because a lot of the women I like to work with, or men too, are people who are doing really well already at what they do. Whatever they're doing, they're usually loving it like you're loving it. You were loving it, but you weren't doing it as a business. You just enjoy doing it. You love interacting with people. You have a tremendous curiosity about people. And you relate so well.
It helps that I'm 5 years old.
It helps you drive. Well, the thing I know about you is you're just so approachable and relatable. You know, you're just a great guy, and you don't put on any airs. You are what you are, and people relate to that. They feel comfortable with you, and they want to share their stories with you. It's that wonderful personality you have that is the spirit-driven. And so, but what I find is, so most of the people that I seem to talk to and work with, whether they're in Mary Kay or out, are people who are already doing something they enjoy and love now,
Right.
and they're good at it. Often they get paid really well, because if you do something you love and you do enough of it, you get pretty good. And you get recognition, and probably people recognize you for what you do, and you get paid pretty good, and so you're happy, you're comfortable. So it's getting people out of their comfort zones that is kind of my big thing. And so what I discovered is people who are at that level, they're in what we call their circle of excellence. They're doing a great job. But I've discovered that there's another step. And The Big Leap was a book that really turned it on for me by Gay Hendricks. And it's called The Big Leap. And it's people have to go from their circle of excellence to their circle of genius. And that's
how do
scary.
they get there?
Well, they have to take a leap. They have to do something they're afraid to do sometimes. They have to step out of their comfort zone. So many times what we do, because it gets easy after a while. Why rock the boat if it's not broken? Why fix it? Not realizing that there's so much more inside of it that we could reach more people or have more influence or do something even bigger.
Sure.
But we know we're happy and satisfied.
So purposefully taking on a challenge that you wouldn't normally take on because you're comfortable. So I see that my wife and I are about ready to step into our genius zone with Puerto Rico, because I know we're going to run into bigger challenges than we've ever, bigger levels, bigger devils, right? So we're going to run into bigger challenges.
I've never heard of that before. That's great.
Higher levels, bigger devils. In video games, I played video games a lot when I was younger, and there'd be levels. So you'd fight you'd go through a battle against the minions, and then you'd get to the end, and there'd be what was called a boss. And then you'd fight that boss, and if you won, you go to the next level. And the minions get stronger on those levels, and then you fight a bigger boss at the end of it. And if you can beat all the bosses, you win the game. But usually the bosses got so difficult you couldn't beat the game. But so I see that. So you So we got your moment where you turned into a superhero.
Well,
and,
no, don't.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, you said some nice things about me, so I'm going to say them about you. So you got to the moment where you were doing the thing you were called to do, and then I know probably along the way, but there was perhaps a time, and we like to call it the what the fail. So the WTF of the program is did you run into a challenge or challenges that could have taken you out? Taking you out of the business, taking you out of life, but you overcame. You pushed through, you motored through, you got some help, you did it yourself. Whatever it was, you prayed and moved forward.
Yeah.
I know this is probably going to sound like a infomercial or something like that, but are you a busy entrepreneur or business owner who has very little time to plan their travels when it comes to taking their families on a vacation? And by the time you get there, you are super exhausted and you don't want to have to think about anything. You just want to enjoy. Well, welcome to Experience Rest, Rincon, Puerto Rico. Let me break it down for you. You come down here, you stay with Sarah and I in one of the many homes that we get access to. We take care of you. We take care of the planning based on your needs. The itinerary is built based on your choices before you even get here. And when you arrive, we pick you up at the airport. We take you to your home for the 2 weeks that you're here, and you don't have to make any decisions. You just show up. You just wake up, enjoy your coffee, enjoy your breakfast, and we make the decisions for you based on your choices. Sarah and I will be your guides, and also we'll take care of the things at the house as well. The cleaning, the cooking. I worked under a James Beard nominated chef at Stove in Port Norfolk, Virginia, and I've got a little bit of skill, but I guarantee you will be blessed with genuine Puerto Rican cuisine and gracious hosts and guides, and we'll take you on tours based on your preferences as well. If you're the adventurous type, we'll go ahead and take you to swim in a waterfall that's a short hike away, and also paddleboarding or surfing, even for the first time. We look forward to having you down. If you have any questions at any time, please don't hesitate to reach out. CasitaMaricao.com or Experience Rest. Thanks for being a part of the community, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
I think for a lot of people, it's not one time. Often there's you go through it
sometimes
more
there's
at different
one
levels.
That stands out.
Yeah. Well, first of all, for me, I tell the story sometimes about a hermit crab. Have you ever seen hermit crabs? Did you have them when you were little?
No, I didn't.
Well, that was what got me out of the house when I didn't drive and I was afraid to talk to people.
Okay.
We didn't have a lot of money. My husband's an engineer at NASA, a scientist, and I one income. And so a vacation for us was not Disney World. We didn't go to Florida. We went to Virginia Beach, and we stayed in probably in a Econo Lodge, and we stayed for a weekend.
Right.
And walking up and down the boardwalk with the kids, outside of a lot of the shops, they'd have these little cages full of these little ugly little things called hermit crabs,
Right.
little tiny, and they had big bulging eyes and a big craw, and my kids just fell in love. They had to have them. Mommy, please. So we bought 2 of them.
They're so cuddly, Mom.
They're not cuddly. Hermie and Little Bit. This was like 40 years ago now. And so more than that. And so, more than that. That's how long I've been around. And but the lady said, now you got to buy extra shells. Because they don't have their own shell. They don't grow their own shell. They live in the discarded shells of other sea creatures. And so we bought a couple extra shells, and we put them in a cage. And I remember a couple days later, the kids were screaming. I got up, and they're going, Mommy, come see. And a little bit had crawled out of a shell into a bigger shell. Okay. But then he ran back, and the next day he ran back into his original shell.
Oh.
So that taught me something, because I watched those little things, and I realized that was my first turning moment. Watching my little hermit crabs. It took all their courage to step out of it. They had little soft bodies. Now,
Right.
if they were on a beach, a crab could come down and eat them for lunch.
Right.
They didn't realize they weren't in danger in my little cage they had. But
Right.
on a beach it is. So it takes every bit of courage to step out of one to go to that bigger shell. And I looked at that and I thought, I'm not any different from those little crabs. That little shell is there. I should have brought it to show you. I have an imitation one I show now. I said, that shell is my comfort zone. And I just realized, I was happy. Seemed like I was satisfied. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do, but I wasn't growing. at all. And so
you don't grow until you move into the bigger shell.
Yeah. In fact, if they don't move out of that shell, they could suffocate and die in there. So that was my first realization that you've got to step out of that and you've got to take a risk. To me, it wasn't a huge risk.
Yeah. So what was your moving out of the shell frightening moment that you had
Well, I got my driver's license. The reason I put it off for so long was in those days you had to have, it was parallel parking, and I was afraid I'd run over the sticks and I'd look stupid. Nobody wants to look stupid, so I put it off forever. And so I got my driver's license. When
did you get your driver's license?
Oh, don't ask me.
Please tell me.
Well, it was like 50 years ago. That's how long this.
No, I mean, how old were you when you?
27 maybe.
Okay, my oldest waited till she was 21.
Did she?
We told her we were tired of driving her to work and picking her up late at night.
Well, my kids all have it circled on a calendar the day they could get their learner's permit.
Yeah.
They can't believe somebody would put it off that way. But that was the first step.
Right.
But then there were other times, and let's see, maybe this would be a big one. I was in Mary Kay for a while, and I was loving it. I was loving what I do. I was gaining confidence, and we'd actually start. This was maybe a few years down the road, and I was doing really well actually. But that was that circle of excellence I'm telling you about, and there's a certain level where you get to go on a top director trip with Mary Kay herself, and they treat you, you're it. It's wonderful. And you go to an exciting country, and they pull out all the stops, 5-star hotels, but mostly it's being with the people, because you really want to be with people who are that excited and doing well, and you learn from that. But I couldn't do that. I could not get it. And I started to learn about mindset, because I think when we started, you had to have done $500,000 in sales to do that trip.
Wow.
Okay? We already won that pink Cadillac everybody asked about, but I couldn't hit $500,000. And then the next year they raised it to $600,000. And of course, that year I did $500,000. A couple years later, they raised it to $650,000. And that year I did the $600,000 that would have got me. And I said, okay.
That elusive award.
I was sabotaging myself. And, it finally hits you. This is what I'm doing to me. And so that's when I met Mary. I had already known Mary Kay. Mary Kay actually trained me. And but I had an opportunity to talk to her around that time, briefly. And she asked the question, she probably asked everybody, what is your goal? And I told her, I really want to be on that top director trip. And she said, she said, Kathy, you know the story about the tortoise and the hare, don't you? Aesop's fable? And she said, who won? And, I know why she said that, because I said to her, I can't believe I said this to Mary Kay herself. I said, but Mary Kay, if I was ever going to do it, wouldn't I have done it by now? Whine. And that's when she said, who won? Right. And she kind of told me the story about the tortoise, of course. But then she leaned over, and she's just amazing at how you felt like she was looking into your soul. She just was such a believer in people. And she put her hand on my arm, and she said, Kathy, it took God 50 years to prepare me to start this company. And now he's preparing you. And I was dumbfounded. We eventually did get on that trip. And this kind of why this story is so important now is I have been in the company 50 years, and I was at a point in my circle of excellence, but COVID hit, and that was another point. I was actually at that point thinking, it's had a good run. I love what I've done, but maybe I should be thinking about retirement, And I couldn't, because all of a sudden everybody, all of the women in my unit were thinking, well, what am I going to do now? I mean, this is a hands-on business, and now we can't do it online. And but we could. And I showed them how to do it. I thought, well, they really need me now. I can't leave now. This is not a good time to leave. We'll think about that later. 2 years later, though, our unit had taken off. That pushed me out of my comfort zone. I had to do things. I mean, I didn't know how to do technical things either. That was foreign to me too. But I had to learn, and I think it was a step out of a comfort zone for many people.
Yeah, it was.
But Zoom just did so much for so many businesses, and my unit went from being great. I mean, we'd done the trip. We had the pink car that everybody talks about. But we sold $1 million for the first time ever in 2020.
Wow.
And then we did it, in 2021, and we did it again in 2023. We've done it. We're about to do it our third time.
Oh, wow.
So what I'm saying is that was the difference between Circle of Excellence
Right.
and Circle of Genius.
Right.
But what did that was knowing, taking responsibility, and doing things I was scared to do. And it takes a risk.
Well, yeah, taking a risk. So let me ask you this. So through all of that and now today, what is it? What is your morning fuel? So the Morning Fuel podcast was born out of adversity. So I went into a anxiety and depression spiral. I lost 2 jobs, and every day I imagined my wife and my daughters and I on the street. And the bills were, the bank account savings was going down, and the bills were piling up. We were late on the mortgage, and there was a morning routine that I got through prayerfully, on spending time with the Lord in silence, reading the Scripture, writing the Scripture, doing the things that I still knew that I could do, exercising and things like that. And I began to come out of that depression. The anxiety started going away, and then next thing you know, I'm working at NASA.
Really?
Yeah. So I was an engineering tech at NASA for 3 years, and I've never gone back into that. I've had opportunities, some harder. So higher levels, bigger devils, some bigger devils came into my life, and it did not put me back into that depression and anxiety because of that morning routine, because of the morning fuel. What would you consider has been your morning fuel throughout the years?
Very much the same thing. Maybe, and I really tell women definitely you want to start journaling too and start feeling feelings. You have to have a little sacred space away from everything. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be a corner of your your front porch even, with some trees to hide you a little bit. So I had a little place in my bedroom, and I would meditate and prayer and read or look at the Bible, but mostly I just would read something inspirational, and then I would journal. And I do a lot of journaling. I really believe in journaling, and I would find that sometimes I'd ask myself questions in my journaling, and then I'd answer myself, and I'd go back and read it 3 or 4 days later and say, golly, did I really say that?
Yeah,
that was really smart.
Some of the best prayers are written prayers, and some of the greatest answers I've gotten were answers back that were written on the page. So
they just, and I say, well, I don't know if that was really me coming through, right?
I think that
was you, God.
That discipline needs to be taught.
Yeah, and it would do it every day. And it was long before I heard of, what is that thing, the Miracle Morning?
Yes.
Now everybody's doing that.
Cal
but
Elrod. That was a book that I listened to. I think that's where I got my
it's
journaling
excellent.
from.
It really is.
Yeah.
But no, it was long before that. It was just, but you do have to take a little bit of quiet time, I think, every day. And I should add exercise in there, but I never really did very much of that.
As long as you're walking, moving around, right? Move around. So the thing I knew that I could still do when I was in that depression was I knew that I could move. So I would go for a walk or I would go for a run.
But I do find that when you just get quiet, you hear whispers.
Mm-hmm. That's
but
still
you have
a small
to get
voice.
quiet to do it. That's still a small voice. Mm-hmm. And so many times you'll find yourself saying the right thing or doing the right thing. Or things will start coming to you. You'll write something down, and it's almost like responses come during the day somehow. Yeah. Synchronicities. Are you big into synchronicities?
Yeah.
Synchronicities happen
it's interesting.
All the time.
So you talk about, that practice has existed, of course, before Hal Elrod wrote the book. And then immediately I thought of Habakkuk. So in the book of Habakkuk, where he writes, write down the vision so that the runners can run with it. And I think a lot of time we have little runners going around, our thoughts, people that we meet that are handed off this vision that we had. And if we don't write it down, we're going to forget about it. Yeah. The author and philosopher Kierkegaard, he kept writing desks all throughout his house because he knew that sometimes you'd only have a one thought one time and then you'd never have it again. Yeah. So he'd have a thought, he'd be walking down the hall, he'd grab a piece of paper off his desk or write it down before it went away. So those are definitely very important.
Oh, I'm so happy you told me that. I didn't know any about that, but that's exactly right. You do have to write it down.
You do.
And it'll sometimes just be a word. I used to write, okay, that was something I did a lot when I was stay-at-home mom. I meditated and did all that then.
Right.
But I also wrote poetry, which one of these days I'm going to publish.
Oh,
but
come on now. One of these
days. I know my daughter, my husband, they're all saying, you got to get it out there. And I keep thinking, who really wants to read these?
Somebody does.
Somebody does. But honestly,
you keep it to yourself. You're holding back from other people.
It's part of why you don't, though, and it's not just me, I think, is they're very personal,
Sure.
and you think, well, do I really want to share all
Just
this with the
change
world?
the names to protect the innocent, right?
Yeah. But I call them inspired writing even then, because I know I was like, you'd write in a poem, and sometimes one line would come to you.
Oh, yeah.
And then
Like,
you'd write the poem around it. Yeah. And sometimes I'd write a little bit and I'd put it away. It's just I couldn't seem to make anything out of it. And then I'd come across a piece of paper 6 months later and pull it out again, and all of a sudden it would flow. It was like it wasn't ready yet to be written. But what you're reading has a lot to influence what comes out. What you put in influences
Absolutely.
what comes out.
So before I ask my last question,
okay,
how can ladies and guys, right? You help guys out too. I've been helped by the times that I've been around you. I've been encouraged. How can folks best reach out to you to connect with you, to communicate with you?
Well, because several ways. There's one that I have a little speakers bureau started, and I'd love them to come to that, because I'm just doing that simply to let people use their gifts publicly.
So your office is at the Harmony Hub in Williamsburg, and once a month, last Thursday.
I call it the second
month?
Thursday.
Second
I
Thursday.
just call it Solopreneur Connection. But you don't have to be a solopreneur, anybody, and don't even have to be in business.
Sure.
But I have speakers cover a wide breadth of opportunities and things, so that would be one way.
Okay.
But I'm also online. They can find. I have a website that's kind of has some good things on it, but I'm not really there. It's KathyEckhardt.com.
Okay.
But also in Mary Kay, you can just Google that, and I'll pop up for you.
All right, and just Google Kathy Eckhardt, because I Googled Kathy Eckhardt. I got to her website. I found her bio, and that's how I created
you found
this.
that.
So then I used a little chat GPT to help me make it sound fluffy, but it was really good.
Aren't you something?
So great. So last question, Kathy Eckhardt, what do you need most right now? What does Kathy Eckhardt need most right now?
Well, I have this goal that I even have a number in my mind. I just want to help a certain number of people get there, before I do decide to retire, which is not going to be tomorrow, the next day, or a couple years from now, probably. But I want to help other women to get there. I would like to see 10 women, have that in my mind, at least 10 women, to step up to where they want to be. It could be in Mary Kay, but it doesn't have to be. I just want to. So I have 2 right now who are right on the verge of taking that leap that's scary.
Wonderful.
And going to that next level.
The scary leap.
That's a scary leap.
Yeah.
Yes. But I've seen so many people take it, and they do. They
can do it.
They just. You have to take the risk.
Yeah.
But usually you have to give something up. To get there, sometimes you have to leave some people behind that maybe were holding you back.
A lot of times, what you're giving up is your comfort.
It's always your comfort. But you get more comfortable later. But in the interim, sometimes you definitely, you do have to give things up. But it's always so much better, because you realize now, it's not just that you're now more successful or making more money or have a wider influence. You feel such a satisfaction knowing that your gifts are not just laying fallow somewhere, that you're really doing what you're supposed to be doing, what you're meant to do, what you enjoy, what gives you pleasure. And you ask me how to do it, this is my advice to people, is simply find what you really enjoy and then do more of it, and just keep pushing the envelope in what you do best, and you'll get there.
That's beautiful.
What you enjoy.
Kathy, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show.
Well,
I've had a wonderful time. I'm sitting here and just enjoying the aroma of the beard oil and the great conversation. Thank you so much, and you're a blessing. I look forward to you finding the other 8 of the 10 And I can't wait to hear about the two that are about ready to take the leap from the lion's head.
I'm so proud of them. I'm so excited for them. And by the way, I am looking forward to actually taking a retreat at this. I hear there's going to be a wonderful spiritual retreat center coming up in Puerto Rico.
In Puerto Rico. Yeah. We're gonna launch this December. Going down to prepare a place for you.
Well, see, that's exactly the kind of place that I look forward to.
Great.
So thank you for building that for me.
Well, you're welcome.
And I enjoyed being here today. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Thank you.